Your cat rolls onto her back the moment you walk into the room. Belly exposed, paws tucked, eyes half closed. You have seen this 1,000 times. You have probably reached down to scratch that soft, vulnerable fur more times than you can count. And every time, you thought she was asking for it. Here is what nobody tells you about that moment. The belly-up posture in domestic cats is one of the most misunderstood signals in the entire feline behavioral repertoire. What you call an invitation, your cat calls a trust assessment with a built-in defense contingency. And the moment your hand descends toward that exposed abdomen, you are not giving affection. You are running a test she has been conducting since the first time you touched her. Let me show you the evidence. Dr. John Bradshaw, the University of Bristol biologist who literally wrote the textbook on feline behavior, spent years decoding the belly-up posture. In 1991, he published the first formal definition of what ethologists now call the vulnerable posture. His conclusion was unambiguous. The cat is not asking for a belly rub. She is demonstrating that she trusts you enough to expose her most vulnerable area, but she is also watching to see what you do with that trust. Think about what is happening biologically when a cat shows you her belly. The ventral abdomen contains no major bones protecting the internal organs. The skin is thin. The area is packed with nerve endings that are exquisitely sensitive to pressure. In the wild, a predator that exposes this area is moments from death. Your cat is showing you her life and waiting to see if you respect it. If you have ever reached down and scratched that belly, and most owners have, you know what happens next about 68% of the time. The cat's hind legs engage. Her claws come out. She grabs your hand, pulls it toward her mouth, and delivers a bite that seems to come from nowhere. You called it a trap. She called it a boundary enforcement. The 2015 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery examined 27 peer-reviewed studies on feline defensive postures. The finding was consistent across every dataset. Cats displaying the belly-up posture were simultaneously exhibiting other stress signals in 68% of cases. Flattened ears, widened pupils, tail puffing. You missed those signals because you were focused on the invitation you thought you saw. Let me show you the numbers from a more recent study. In 2020, Rieger and Turner published a paper in Frontiers in Veterinary Science that tracked 84 cat owner pairs. They measured something called latency to approach, how long it took a cat to voluntarily return to an owner after a single belly scratch interaction. The baseline latency was 12 seconds. After a single negative belly scratch, defined as a scratch that caused the cat to startle or defensive bite, the latency jumped to 23 seconds. That is nearly double, and it persisted for an average of 4 weeks. 4 weeks, one touch, and your cat re-evaluated your trustworthiness for a month. If that number unsettles you, good. It should. Most cat owners never realize their touch carries consequences that last weeks. This is exactly the kind of hidden behavior this channel exists to uncover. Subscribe so you do not miss the deeper layers we are about to explore, because the mechanism behind this effect reveals something even more unsettling. And in the comments, tell me, how many times have you reached for your cat's belly this week without knowing what you were actually asking? The mechanism behind this is deeply embedded in feline neurobiology. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, activates within milliseconds when a cat feels an unexpected touch on her belly. Dr. Gregory Burns and his team at Emory University used fMRI scanning on awake cats in 2020. They found that the amygdala and anterior cingulate cortex lit up dramatically when the cat heard a human voice paired with a sudden hand movement. The brain was not processing affection. It was processing a potential predator. You are not a predator. Your cat knows you are not a predator. But her amygdala does not know that. Her amygdala evolved over millions of years in an environment where an unexpected touch on the belly meant teeth tearing into soft tissue. That ancient survival circuit activates before her conscious brain can say, "Oh, it is just my owner." And here is where it gets even more unsettling. The same mechanism that makes your cat vulnerable to you also makes her vulnerable to predators. She cannot tell the difference between an owner's well-meaning hand and a threat until after her defense system has already engaged. That is why she bites first and recognizes you second. Her survival script does not give her time to deliberate. If you have ever felt confused, embarrassed, or even betrayed when your cat bit you after what seemed like an invitation, you are not alone. You read the posture as an offer. She read your hand as a potential violation of the trust she was displaying. The mismatch is not her fault. It is not your fault. It is an evolutionary collision between a social signal designed for other cats and a human brain that reads it as human affection. Let me show you how this misunderstanding compounds over time. In 2013, Dr. Karen Overall and her team at the University of Pennsylvania published a longitudinal study on fear conditioning in kittens. They exposed a group of 62 kittens to 3 negative belly touches during the critical socialization window between 3 and 5 weeks of age. By 12 weeks, those kittens showed avoidance scores that were 0.73 standard deviations higher than the control group. That is a massive effect size, the equivalent of a human child who, after 3 negative hand touches, developed a fear response that persisted through early development. But here is the part that should make every cat owner stop. The negative touch was not aggressive. It was not painful. It was simply unexpected and unwanted. The researchers described it as a brief, gentle but firm pressure on the ventral abdomen, the kind of touch that millions of owners deliver every day, thinking it is affection. Your cat does not forgive and forget. She updates her trust model, and she remembers the update. Turner and Bateson confirmed this in 2012 with a study on 48 domestic shorthair cats. A single belly scratch that caused a startled response, even without a bite, raised the cat's salivary cortisol by 38%. That stress elevation lasted up to 2 hours, and in subsequent interactions, the cat showed a measurable increase in distance-keeping behavior. She sat farther away. She turned her head away more frequently. She blinked less. Those are not random behaviors. Those are active threat mitigation strategies. Your cat was managing her risk around you. The sensory world of this interaction is worth pausing on. Imagine experiencing the belly-up posture from your cat's perspective. Her visual field is wide, nearly 200 degrees, but her depth perception is poor at close range. When your hand descends toward her belly, she cannot see it clearly until it is inches away. The sudden movement in her peripheral vision triggers an orienting reflex. Her whiskers, which are exquisitely sensitive to air currents, detect your hand approaching. Her skin, packed with mechanoreceptors that can feel a single grain of sand, registers the pressure of your fingers before her brain has processed what that pressure means. The scent is also critical. Your hand carries the smell of everything you touched today. Your cat's olfactory epithelium contains 200 million scent receptors, 40 times more than a human. She smells the food you ate, the door handle you touched, the other animal you petted, the stress hormones on your skin. That chemical profile is part of her threat assessment. If your hand smells unfamiliar or carries the scent of another cat, her defense response intensifies. And the sound, the low rumble of your voice, the rustle of your sleeve, the creak of the floorboard as you shift your weight. Every sound is a data point in her decision. Should I tolerate this touch, or should I defend? The answer she gives you is not static. It changes based on her energy level, her health status, her recent experiences, the time of day, the temperature of the room, the presence of other animals, her hormone cycle, and 100 other variables you cannot perceive. That is why she sometimes tolerates a belly rub and other times bites. She is not inconsistent. She is responding to a multimodal assessment that changes by the hour, and you only see the surface. If you have ever wondered why your cat seems to love belly rubs one day and attack your hand the next, you are seeing the output of a complex decision tree that you never learned to read. The belly-up posture is not a single signal. It is a conversation that starts with a trust demonstration and ends with either a bond reinforcement or a boundary enforcement. The outcome depends entirely on what happens in the milliseconds after your hand begins its descent. Now let me show you what actually happens inside your cat's brain during that interaction. The somatosensory cortex processes the touch. The amygdala evaluates the threat. The prefrontal cortex, if it has time, overrides the amygdala with recognition. This is my owner. This is safe. But the prefrontal cortex is slow. It takes approximately 150 milliseconds to process conscious recognition. The amygdala can trigger a defensive bite in 50 milliseconds. Your cat has already decided whether to bite you before she knows it is you. That 50-millisecond gap is the entire story of your relationship with your cat, compressed into a neural firing sequence you will never see and she cannot control. That gap is the fulcrum every cat owner should understand. You are not alone in missing it. Almost everyone does. But once you see it, you belong to a different kind of cat guardian. Subscribe to join a community that learns to read these invisible signals. And in the comments, write the word milliseconds if you have ever been bitten by your cat and wondered why, because that gap explains everything. Here is what Dr. Carlo Siracusa, the head of behavioral medicine at the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine, calls the critical window. He describes it as a 100-millisecond span between stimulus and response, where everything is decided. In that window, your cat's brain must solve a problem that has no perfect solution. Is this hand a threat or a bond? The amygdala votes threat, the prefrontal cortex votes bond, and the amygdala votes faster. But here is the layer most owners never reach. The amygdala does not vote the same way every time. Its response is modulated by a lifetime of stored data. Every single belly touch your cat has ever experienced is recorded in a neural network called the periaqueductal gray. This ancient brain structure, located in the midbrain, stores the sensory memory of every touch that was ever delivered to her ventral abdomen. The first time she felt a human hand on her belly as a kitten, that memory was archived. Every subsequent touch updated the file. You are not just touching her belly. You are querying a database that has been accumulating since her first conscious moment. In 2018, a team at Cornell led by Dr. Catherine Hoopt published a study on what they called tactile memory consolidation in domestic cats. They trained 36 cats to associate a specific touch on the belly with a positive reward, a small piece of salmon. Then they waited 60 days and repeated the touch without the reward. The cats showed behavioral evidence of remembering the association. But here is the critical finding. If the touch was delivered in a different location, even a few centimeters away from the original spot, the memory was not activated. The cats essentially started over. Your cat does not just remember that you touched her belly. She remembers exactly where you touched her belly. The precision of her tactile memory is measured in millimeters, not inches. Now apply that to your daily interactions. You reach down to scratch her belly. She tolerates it. You think the interaction was neutral or positive, but your hand does not land on the exact same spot every time. You shift a centimeter left. Your angle varies by 10 degrees. The pressure changes based on how tired your arm muscles are. Every variation is a separate query to her database, and most of those queries come back with an ambiguous result. This is the single most important concept in understanding your cat's behavior. She is not responding to you. She is responding to the precise configuration of sensory input you are delivering at this specific moment. And that configuration changes every single time. Dr. Dennis Turner, the Swiss ethologist who has studied cat-human interactions for 47 years, calls this the variable response problem. He documented it in a seminal 1995 paper on feline behavioral consistency. Turner found that cat owners consistently overestimated the stability of their cat's responses by a factor of 4. Owners said their cat always or never did something. The video evidence showed the cat doing that thing approximately 25% of the time, not 80%. You are not a reliable narrator of your cat's behavior because your brain simplifies patterns that are not simple. Your cat's brain does the opposite. She sees complexity where you see repetition. That is why you feel confused and she feels predictable. Let me show you the sensory math. Your cat's brain processes approximately 200 million scent molecules per second. She analyzes the subtle temperature gradient of your hand, which varies by 0.2 degrees Celsius depending on which hand you use, what time of day it is, and whether you just held a warm coffee cup. She detects the micro-vibrations in your fingertips caused by your own blood pulsing through your capillaries. She hears the difference between your exhale and your inhale and correlates it with the direction of your hand movement. All of this happens in the 150 milliseconds before her amygdala finishes its threat assessment. By the time you have consciously decided to extend your hand toward her belly, she has already processed an enormous data set that you cannot perceive and she cannot articulate. The Hungarian ethologist Dr. Martagacsi published a remarkable study in 2018 on what she called interspecies predictive coding. She found that cats, like dogs, build internal models of their owner's behavior. But the cat model is fundamentally different. The dog model predicts outcomes. The cat model predicts intentions. Your cat does not ask herself, "What will happen if his hand touches my belly?" She asks, "What does his hand intend to do to my belly?" And she answers that question by analyzing hundreds of microsignals you do not know you are sending. The angle of your wrist, the tension in your fingers, the microsaccades of your eyes, those tiny involuntary movements that happen 3 to 4 times per second, the subtle shift in your vocal pitch when you are about to touch her, the electromagnetic field generated by the nerve signals traveling down your arm. Yes, cats can detect electromagnetic fields. Dr. Sherman and his team at the University of California published a paper in 2020 demonstrating that domestic cats use the Earth's magnetic field as a spatial reference when positioning their bodies during rest. Your cat is not just reading your body. She is reading the electromagnetic field that surrounds your body, and she correlates it with her own magnetic sense. You are, quite literally, an electromagnetic event in her perceptual universe, and she is the most sensitive instrument in your home for measuring it. Think about what this means for the belly-touch interaction. In the milliseconds before your hand makes contact, your cat has already completed a risk assessment based on at least 6 distinct sensory channels: visual, tactile, auditory, olfactory, thermal, and electromagnetic. She has correlated that assessment with a database of every similar interaction she has ever experienced, each stored with millimeter-precision spatial coordinates. She has consulted her current physiological state, her cortisol level, her hunger, her hydration, her sleep debt, her pain level. She has factored in the time of day, the ambient temperature, the presence of other animals, the sound of traffic outside, and the phase of the moon. Now, after all of that, she makes a decision. And you think she bit you because she is moody. The 2021 study by Pongratz and Altrichter, published in Applied Animal Behavior Science, measured what they called unpredictable defensive responses in 62 domestic cats. They found that only 9% of defensive bites could be predicted by the owner. But when the researchers analyzed the video footage frame by frame, they found that every single defensive bite was preceded by at least 3 clear stress signals that the owner missed. The most commonly missed signal was the skin twitch, a tiny ripple along the cat's belly, lasting approximately 1/3 of a second, visible only in slow motion. Your cat told you she was about to bite. You just could not see the signal because your eyes are not designed to process information at her time scale. You have just learned that your cat broadcasts on frequencies you cannot see. The question is whether you will start learning to receive them. This channel exists to teach you exactly that, frame by frame. Subscribe now so you do not walk away from this insight without committing to it. And in the comments, drop a single word: frequency, to mark the moment you realized your cat was sending signals you had been missing. Now here is the truth that transforms everything. Your cat is not keeping secrets from you. She is broadcasting on frequencies you have not learned to receive. The belly-up posture is not an invitation or a trap. It is an open channel, and most owners are listening on a different frequency entirely. The solution is not to stop touching your cat's belly. The solution is to learn to read the data stream she is sending you every second of every interaction. Her skin twitches, her whisker angle, her pupil dilation measured against ambient light, the micro-expressions that flicker across her face at 60 frames per second. You missed them because you were not looking, but now you know they exist, and knowing is the first step toward truly seeing.